Thank you, Rafa. I'm Ignacio Maroto, the Provost of Westfield Business School, as Rafa has introduced me. We are here today for the keynote session with Emilio Galli, Emergency, Crisis Management and Communications. It's a pleasure to welcome the students from the Leadership in Times of Crisis, Liderazgo en Tiempos de Crisis course, students from Westfield, and students from EIGE, Escuela Internacional de Gerencia. We have with us here today Carlos Castilla, who is the General Manager of Escuela Internacional de Gerencia. Good afternoon, Carlos.
Good afternoon, Ignacio. How are you? Bueno, lo primero, disculparme que os voy a hablar en castellano, porque sé que a Emilio le están traduciendo. Agradecer a Westfield que haya tenido en cuenta a la Escuela Internacional de Gerencia para incorporar este seminario tan interesante a nuestra serie de seminarios indoor que estamos ofreciendo pues, con la situación que nos ha propiciado el COVID. Simplemente agradecer a Westfield la deferencia y, por supuesto, a Emilio, lo que estamos seguros va a ser una intervención magnífica. Y os deseo que sea un éxito.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Emilio, I'm guessing that they have translated it for you. Carlos was speaking well of you, so no problem about that. And we will have this session in English. All of you will have the opportunity to listen to translation. You just have to select the Spanish version. There will be someone. If you're not going to speak, just switch off the microphone. No? Someone has the microphone open. And,
David is calling from a club.
David, could you please switch off your microphone, David? Thank you very much, David. All right, so as I was saying, we will hold this meeting in English. You have the Spanish translation, and we will have a space for questions at the end of the meeting and on the final part of the meeting. You can write down your questions in the chat, and they can be either in Spanish or English, and we'll direct them to Emilio in the final part of the meeting. Now I'll leave you with Rafael de Cárdenas. He's head of academics in Prisma Education, the holding education group, and CEO of Tete Fostering Leadership. It's another great pleasure to have you with us today. And I'll leave you to introduce us to the keynote session and to Emilio. Thank you, Rafa.
Thank you, Ignacio. Pleasure. Muchas gracias a todos. Lo primero que quiero asegurarme es que todo el mundo está, de algún modo, lo tiene claro y sabe cómo hacer funcionar la traducción. Hay un botón abajo a la derecha que pone Interpretation, a mí me lo pone en inglés, no sé cómo lo pondrá en el vuestro, pero bueno, si en algún caso hay algún problema con eso, nos escribís en el chat, por favor. De manera que estoy leyendo que funciona muy bien, de manera que, bueno, qué alegría. Voy a pasar ahora al inglés, perdonadme, voy a introducir a Emilio, que habla muchos idiomas, pero no habla el español. No es perfecto. Nobody's perfect. Emilio speaks many languages, but not Spanish. But, I mean, we can, well, he's almost perfect. I mean, he's this close to perfection. But, gracias y me paso al inglés para introducir a Emilio brevemente. Emilio is one of those people that I met in life that I can position himself as those wise people that we all had in previous civilizations, right? Those people that somehow you call them or you reach out to them or you approach them whenever you have something, a challenge that is never approached by the current civilization and that somehow is addressing issues that are that don't have a time, right? But at the same time that for any current moment are crucial, right? Emilio is very knowledgeable about many areas in the business field and also in psychology and human beings as a whole. Emilio is author of several books. There's one that I love particularly among them, which is The Listening Leader. a communicative approach to leadership and how important is communication. This is a crucial idea that Emilio develops very nicely in the book and in all his work. Emilio has been working for many years. I will not say everything about it, but he's been working many years for a huge company, Allianz, running for more than 20 years the communications department in a company that is, you can imagine, global. I don't know, 160 countries. I don't know how many, but something like this, a number of countries. And Emilio's been dealing with challenges of all kinds over those years, challenges regarding the market, challenges regarding internal things, challenges regarding what is happening in any given society in so many countries. So the experience in that field is huge for Emilio, but also he left Allianz and now he's running a wonderful company known Orvieto. The name is based on the place where Emilio comes from in Italy, and it's a fantastic leadership company. It's about how to help leaders of the world. Also, he is president of Metodos, which is a huge Italian company, you know, addressing transformation in large organizations and small ones. So, well, Emilio, to us, it's a huge pleasure to have you with us today. We know that the moment we are going through with the COVID-19 and the many challenges, not only today, because we are all, you know, in these four walls, which that's a challenge, but there's many challenges ahead. Actually, we believe that that's where leaders are needed. We believe the positive side of this is that leadership is precisely about this, is, you know, standing up and trying to show, you know, what we can do in situations like this. And actually, it's a pleasure to have you here and give us, you know, some light on what is happening now, where this comes from, and what you think about the future we are heading. As Ignacio said, we will leave you afterwards, you know, a time for people to ask questions, and then we can interact with the audience in that regard if you like it. Thank you, Emilio.
Muchas gracias, querido hermano de corazón. So I've been through, I'm the oldest here in the call, so I've been through many crises whom I attended and I was part of either in politics or as a journalist or as a manager. I've gone through three major financial crises, 87 and then the two in this century. I had to manage the crisis management during 9/11 terror attacks, and we managed to save more than 200 people who were in one of the two towers. Just 5 minutes after they left the building, the tower collapsed. We managed the crisis of the big tsunami, Fukushima, and all of these crises had a precedent in my generation. The terrorist attacks by the Islam terrorists and the Al-Qaeda terrorists had a precedent with the Red Brigades in Italy and the Rote Armee Fraktion in Germany and the IRA. The tsunami had precedents with earthquakes, hurricanes, and the tsunami that hit Thailand. So we had precedents, and so people who were living these crises were asked for commodity, were people who had their like a campaign of a general. I have the campaign of 9/11, I have the campaign of the tsunami, I have the campaign of financial crisis, and therefore I'm entitled to help and to be of support while there is a crisis like that. Now let's ask Astrid maybe to turn her microphone off because there is background sound. Now, where are we now? We are in the middle of a pandemic. My generation hasn't seen a pandemic. The last pandemic, global pandemic, was the Spanish flu in 1918, which had nothing to do with Spain, as you know. And there are people still alive who were born in 1918 and before, but they didn't manage this crisis. They're not old enough to have been on the managing side. So there is no experience. And normally when you have a crisis, you turn to experience. You turn to people who have lived it. But if you face a crisis where there is no experience, you have only one thing you can turn to, and that's character. It's mindset. It's a position, it's a set of values. Because nobody can claim they know where it goes. And as nice as Rafa is, he's a friend, he's an inspiration for me throughout the last years that I've met him. I cannot provide you with anything as far as the crystal ball is concerned. What I can tell you is, if you have the right attitude, and if the leadership is the correct leadership, you will be able not only to tackle this crisis, but to go beyond resilience. Resilience is the ability to resist a crisis over a longer period. But what we're here about is anti-fragility. We are beyond resilience. We are in an area where we can turn the fragility into a new mode, into a new world, into a new way of life. And this is up to us. It's up to you. It's not up to me. I can hopefully inspire you, but it's about you doing it in your daily life with your people. Now, I'd like to share my screen with let's see whether I'm able to do so and come up with a chart that I'd like to show you here. I don't know. Can you see this?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
So here we are. Now, I see 6 areas where the situation we're in is putting us at a tipping point situation. These 6 areas were areas that were there already before, that we've been dealing with in the last 5 or 6 or 10 years. And I believe that Corona and COVID-19 will, and the time after, we are in the year 0. Before, these all are challenges that are in the BC time, before Corona. And we will deal with them in the post-Corona time, starting next year. And I'll go through them. The one is ESG. It stands for Environmental, Societal, and Governance. Well, many companies have discovered that there isn't only the market with customers, bless you, only the customers, it's the financial markets, and there is a microphone on that we might turn off. So, but that beyond the customers and the financial markets and the owners and the employees, there is also society, which gives us the license to operate. I will not go into cases of the recent past. However, where are we now? If we look at the Earth from above, from the satellite pictures, we can see that Corona has done in 2 months something that we didn't manage to achieve in the last years, and that is to getting us to a world which is much closer to the Paris climate conference goals that we've ever been. Pollution has been strongly reduced in many areas. Because traveling has diminished, because production has been held. You think of the S, the societal changes. Now, I give you a very stupid example, and that is home office has been something, we'll come back to digitization before. Home office has been something that we've been doing for some years. But in some companies, home office was something for spoiled latte macchiato mothers being at home, painting their toenails, being paid by the company, and wasting the company's money. Now we see that those mothers, those people who've been doing home office for the last years, are the real caretakers of the skill set of doing homework. They teach the others of the team how to do it because they've been doing it for the last years. Or a friend of mine, Angela Peacock, a wonderful woman, she's the guru of inclusion. She invented the unconscious bias test. Angela told me, look at those video conferences. You have people, you just see my face. How do you know that I'm not sitting in a wheelchair? People in wheelchairs are adopted on eye level, inclusion revisited. There is no discrimination any longer. Or think of the G and the role of the state, for example, in society, in business, Or think of AGMs, AGM meetings now being held on video conferences. It changes the governance of the companies, and it changes the whole approach to governing both companies and the state, with questions and possible outcomes of, for example, privacy laws, of the role of health systems that were used to be under cost-cutting exercises for years, and now we see that they were important for survival. Another trend that has been there for the last years was digitization. Now everybody, every manicure shop in a ghetto would be digital and sustainable, because everybody had to be. Now we are working in a digital way. We have to. Those who still have a job and are working from remote have a strong push towards digitization, and it changes the whole hierarchies in teams. Previously, the 55-year-old white-haired gorilla at the coffee machine who knew everything better tends to be possibly in a minority now, because he cannot call a Zoom or Microsoft Teams meeting. While the shy 23-year-old girl who was always at the side, now she is acting, because she is the nerd, the IT nerd, who is able to do it. There is a whole shuffle of it. And by the way, and we come to motivation, motivation is also, now the business has started to discover motivation. In old worlds and in old companies, motivation is still carrot and sticks. Still people think that remuneration is motivation. That has nothing to do with remuneration. It's a hygiene factor. Real motivation, as we know from Daniel Pink, is mastery, is being able to be excellent in your job, is autonomy, and it's purpose. Now, in a remote working environment, you're learning totally new skills, and you have a new mastery. And the mastery is totally different, and it's improved, especially on the digital side. Autonomy. The controlling leader cannot check where you are. Where are you? Can you control the people? No, you're not. You don't know where they are, where they work the whole day. You have to give way to autonomy, and this will never come back. You will never be able to catch them back. And if you think after Corona, you will be able to withhold the autonomy given already, you will lose those people. You might not lose them the first year, because the first year we will try to recover from a disastrous economy, and everybody will be there just stuck to their job. But after that, you will leave them, especially if you don't do the third thing. You don't look at the purpose. People are asking me, I have big auditing companies, consulting companies, that called me up and said, why do you call me? You're a consulting company. You know everything better than me anyway. They said, look, we are very afraid to lose our best people, because it's difficult right now to give them a purpose and to make them understand why they should continue working with us. So ambidexterity is another challenge. Now, in my times, when I was your age, you had companies going through cycles. You had a cycle where the company was growing, and you had growing CEOs, great in growth. Then it grew too much, and then you had to be careful because you needed to restructure it. You would hire a new CEO who would restructure the company. Then you would have another period of another 5 years of a CEO who would stabilize the company. This is gone. In the VUCA world, now every manager has to be both. He has to be able to grow, and she has to be able to restructure. And this is happening at the very same time. So Corona is exactly this, is giving us a challenge, because cost cutting is everywhere right now, because everybody is, except for the few areas that are booming. Amazon is hiring 40,000 people, but that's, there are companies who are booming during Corona times, but they're the minority. All the others are engaged in enormous cost cutting exercises, but they have also to rethink their business models, and some do very successfully so. I work with some, I can give you some examples later if you want. Relationships. Now, we don't have relationships. We are far away. We are longing for relationships. Communication is parted basically in two areas. One is cold and one is warm communication. Cold communication is technological communication. Emails, WhatsApp, even a video conference is cold communication. Warm communication is meeting in persona, meeting yourselves, hugging, shaking hands, and being in one room. Now this is being revisited. And also here we tap some of the energies and creativity of the people we looked down on. I remember 10 years ago, so when for the first time, my daughter wrote me an email and she signed it LOL. And I thought she would mean, you know, lots of love. Bullocks. She was laughing out loud. And not only you have this LOL laughing out loud, they invented emojis. And the emojis now are being used by everyone because they allow you, even in a cold communication, to express emotions. But also, you are rediscovering mindfulness. Because managing, you know, my eyes are red at the end of the day. When we're done with this, now I have another video conference with Mario Monti and a couple of people from Italy and Germany looking at how we could revive German-Italian relationships, which are under difficult strain. It will last until 10 o'clock tonight. And then hopefully I won't see my kids because they're in bed already, and I'll see my wife, and I'm tired at the evening. But so this organization of the work is putting some challenges on some people, and others have more time available. So finding the right balance between cold and warm is one of the challenges, and we will look at that after Corona time as well. And foremost, leadership. Leadership, this situation is a test case for credibility of leadership. To be credible and to build trust, it doesn't work under control mechanisms. So if I meet, I don't know, I see wonderful ladies here in this call. Each one of you I could address and say, you know, Anna, Christina, so whatever, I meet you in an elevator and I say, hello, I'm Emilio Galli, born in Napoli, trust me. Of course, I wouldn't be offended or surprised if you were looking for your wallet or you were looking for the red button to push, because you cannot give trust to someone you don't know. Trust is earned over the time. And trust, even in these situations, is earned, for example, by the triangle between competency, integrity, and motivation. You cannot build trust with someone who has a high integrity, who is a very motivated person, but has no clue about the things you want to discuss with that person. It's lost time. You don't buy insurance from someone who doesn't know about insurance, okay? But if he knows about insurance and is a person with high integrity, but is not motivated at all and says, oh, you have $100,000, please hide them under the mattress. Don't bring them to insurance or banking companies. You will not trust this person. And if you have someone who's very competent and highly motivated, but who's been in jail 5 years for fraud, you will not buy anything from this person. So there are some rules about how to establish trust, and I'm happy to share them with you. And maybe I take this passing moment to the next and last slide to tell you, look, we're here together for another half an hour plus with our questions and answers and so forth. But I do believe in sustainable learning. So any kind of question you might have from the 30th of April of 2020 to the 30th of April to 2021, it's part of the deal that I have with Westfield and with Rafa. You can ask me all kinds of questions for the next year. Send me an email and I'll be happy to answer them. So don't be concerned if you can't answer the question today. If we're talking about sustainable learning, we need to practice sustainable learning, and you'll be able to look at those things later on. And now we come to what I think is a couple of disciplines that allow us to go and handle a situation where we don't have experience. And if you allow, I will go to another chart, which is not as nice, but definitely is richer than this one. Just allow me a second. So basically what I'm saying is, so I have here, Corona, here it is, okay. So again, it's not as sexy as the layout is concerned, but I think it is, okay. Can you see it? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We do, sir.
Okay, so What do we have in terms of leadership? In these times, it is enormously important to be a reliable source. We all spoke about the fake news and stuff. I mean, I'm not commenting on any politician and so forth, but apparently there was even a politician who suggested to inject disinfectants into your veins. I mean, this is really irresponsible, and it's not sarcasm. It's just lack of mastering the art of information, which has to be true. It has to be fast. It has to be fact-based. It has to be supported by storytelling. It has to be relevant to the people, and you have to be able to admit mistakes. And this is important for leaders to go through this phase. We don't have the answers. And we've seen good leaders deciding for the first week of Corona that face masks are irrelevant, and the same leaders telling you that we now need to wear face masks. I don't tease them. I respect them highly because they learned from the situation, they learned from science, they learned from mistakes, and they adapted it. So if they were honest in every moment, people will accept that they might have been wrong. The leader of today in this context cannot afford to think he's always right. And I'm saying he with a purpose, because normally the she's are better at this, okay? So make sure you say what you think, you base it, you know, journalism is the art of good information. And Henry Luce, who was the founder of Time magazine, had a wonderful rule for every paragraph of magazine writing. Every paragraph has to have one fact, one figure, one quote. And make sure that you take this when you interact with your stakeholders. Then we come to the second belt you need to earn towards the black belt. So that was the yellow belt of good information. Then you have to have the orange belt of good communication. Now, the biggest lie on earth, before the words, "I love you, darling," or "I love to do the dishwashing," is when a manager says, "I communicate." Because most of the times, this manager means, "I tell." There was a McKinsey consultant called Zeno of Elea who lived 2,500 years ago in Sicily. That's the old name of Sicily in Greece was Elea. And he said something wonderful. He said, "It's not a coincidence that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much as we speak." And this is what communication is about. Listening to stakeholders, making sure that we are aware right now from the staff in which condition they're in. In remote leadership, you don't know what's happening. I have a friend of mine who's the chairman of one of the largest financial institutions of the world. I just spoke to him and his wife a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "You know, Emilio, I've been telling my husband for the last 5 years that he should look at the development of his kids and not be away the whole time. Thank God we have Corona. Now my husband is at home. He works the whole day, but he cooks for us at lunch. He cooks for us at dinner. Our house is big enough. Their conditions is they are benefiting. I personally am a beneficiary of coronavirus. I hate traveling. I've been a war correspondent. I've been in all the 5-star hotels of the world. I've been in all the nice places, flew, Concorde, first class. I hate it. I want to go to sleep with my wife. I want to hug my children. Corona for me gives me an ideal situation. I have a wonderful apartment. We have a little garden. We live in a great city with good health system. There is nothing to cry about. But what do I know about my staff? What do you know about that lady who is part of my staff, who has 2 children who can't go to kindergarten or school, and she has to take care? They have 2 computers, and they're fighting over the 2 computers. Herself, her husband, if her husband is around, and the 2 kids for homeschooling. How can I pretend that I want to have a team working without knowing what is behind the screen? So I have to listen to my stakeholders. Then we clearly have, why do we have to do that? The more we listen to the stakeholders and we adapt our strategy, because we don't know the perfect strategy, how to navigate in times of crisis. We know that we have a cap, maybe. We have a lighthouse, maybe. But we're sailing with a sailing boat, and the wind could hit us from any different areas. And the good sailor knows you cannot just put the engine into one direction and sail. You have to adapt to the wind. And the wind is basically what your stakeholders are. And if you have an idea where you want to go to, but you listen to your stakeholders, they might help you to adapt your strategy to this case. And by doing so, you do something, it's like a magic. You not only improve your strategy, you increase the ownership of the stakeholders because they recognize their own contribution in the strategy. So they own the strategy. They will participate. You give them purpose. You engage them much more. The next step, the next belt you need to earn is enabling your stakeholders. Now, I have a company who was our customer, was one of the largest utility companies of the world. The head of HR 2 weeks ago went to the CEO and said, I have a budget of 54 million euro or dollars. Just take dollars, but it's 54 million euro. I would like to spend them in the next 6 weeks. The CEO asked him, what did you smoke? Are you crazy? We're just in cost-cutting device, and you want to spend your whole budget right now? He said, yes, I want, because I want to enable our people with the proper computing, with proper teaching, with proper learning, to enable them for remote working and invest in digital right now at the next 6 weeks, because we need it right now. And when the situation is going to get worse, we're going to have a much better cost situation. We will be able to save more jobs because we will have a different system. Another customer of mine, of a medium insurance company in Germany, is now considering cutting real estate of their company by 70%. And I say, look, but that's not fair, because you're cutting real estate because you see people can work from home because you equip them well, but basically you should pay part of their rent because they're working out of their homes. Okay, he said, thank you for this input, because we'll save so much money that we'll be able to give back some of it to our people. So there is a totally new situation where you can invest in your people and you can tap collective intelligence and you can increase the market value of every people. I always told my staff people when I was in management, look, I want to grow your market value. If my company is too stupid to exploit your increased market value because I've invested in you, it's our fault. In this case, you will be able to get another job somewhere else with a higher market value. This is something that helps people to drive their energies, and you can increase their market value by investing in them and by tapping the collective intelligence. Remember the case of the timid young girl who is an IT nerd versus the old silver-haired know better everything. We have a remix of skills. We have a new opportunity for people to be in the team. And then comes the next belt you need to earn. It's the blue belt. It's empowerment of staff. It's beyond delegation. It's not about delegation. You can delegate if you know things. If I have 2 meetings at the same time, I have to be in the performance meeting and there is a budget meeting. I can send Susie to the budget meeting and tell her, look, Susie, I don't want a budget below 5% or above 10%, okay? I don't want any FTE cut. Go, and you have my delegation to go there. So I can, by delegating, I can double my power and impact. The problem is, she will find a budget meeting that is not the regular normal budget meeting. It will be totally different. And they might decide we abolish budgets because right now we don't want to have budgets any longer. We'll bring them all together. And Susie will say, I don't know, Emilio didn't tell me whether I'm able to decide something like that. In times of uncertainty, you cannot delegate. You have to empower. You have to give away responsibility. And by giving away responsibility and power, you allow yourself to retain some space for what you're actually paid for as a leader, which is to think. And therefore promote entrepreneurship and spark up creativity. Rafa mentioned that I'm chairman of Metodos, which is a change management company, the market leader in Italy. Now, when in February, Corona hit Italy very hard, for example, we were doing a program for ChinaChem. ChinaChem is a company with 880,000 people. So it's a big company. We're doing lots of workshops, 200 workshops. It was $1 million deal. Of course, it was canceled from one day to another. So things like that happen. We had to think, my goodness, how are we going to deal with that situation? So we have a great CEO, and he convened 2 hackathons. And we did 2 hackathons with all of our staff in Italy and in the companies where we work, in Germany and France and so forth. And they generated 5 new business ideas. One of them, just a little one I'm going to share with you, is a corporate radio, a great idea. You have a web-based radio, you work, I don't know, for Siemens, you turn on the radio in the morning when you start your home office, and you hear some very good music. Then you hear the jingle of Siemens, and then you have the newscast, where you have the biggest news from Washington, Berlin, or whatever, or Madrid. And then you have another part, 1 minute, the CEO addressing you. Or you have a call-in for psychologists, how to deal with home office, with a crazy husband, or how to deal with schooling at home and so forth. So employees are stayed together in a community. We sold 17 of those in Italy so far. So the business is thriving with Metodos. And who made this? Was it the CEO? Was it the chairman? No, it was the whole staff, the energy of the whole staff, empowered by it, and they're really motivated because everybody can make a difference. And last but not least, it's driving change. That's the black belt that you need to earn. And that is starting by yourself. Start by yourself because attitude and character is everything. There is no bluff any longer. If you were the boss because you had the corner office and you had the dragon of executive assistant in your room before who was shouting at everyone and was a gatekeeper to access you, okay, this is gone remotely. There is no gatekeeper any longer. You don't have a corner office. You're equal. You may be in a better apartment than your staff, but you're equal. Even Corona can hit you. So if you think you have to start thinking of what added value you can give. And one important added value is stability, is a caring shoulder. Make sure that you don't only do video conferences. Talk to single members of the team as well. Allow them to interact between themselves, to common things, to find their way. And take time to reinvent business model. That is the time you need to have. And we are turning into a time, you know, if you think of 200, 150 years ago, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, they were cruel capitalists, okay, like the oligarchs in Russia or China right now. They just thought of the profit. Very brutal people. But then at some point in their lives or in their kids' lives, they discovered philanthropy. Now, still today, the Rockefeller Foundation is one of the big foundations that really contributed to democracy in the world. And it's the fruit of the work of a guy who used black slaves to make his billions, okay? So that's the old times. You made money and then you became a philanthropist. Then we came to a time that we're looking at now, which is the time where you do greenwashing and whitewashing. With the left hand, you abuse women, and with the right hand, you foster, you invest and donate to an NGO helping, you know, inclusion. So that was the sort of hypocritical thing. Now we come into an area where purpose is turning into a business model. Purpose works producing money because people will love to work where there is something that they can do that is a solution to a problem available in the company. So you will be able, driving change, to have a draft in your mind as a leader, and your stakeholders will transform the draft into a craft, into a final plan. And here I stop because we're 22 minutes away. No, yes, 22 minutes away from the end. And I would like to leave you some space. What we cannot discuss today, we can discuss over mail or video from 1 year as of now. It's free of charge for all the friends in this call.
Thank you, Emilio. Wow. Beautiful. And very, very, very inspiring. Actually, we have already many questions for you. You know, as you said, you went through many situations, right? Not similar to this one, but that somehow have been paramount in different times in recent history, right? There is a question here, which is about what the senior people in the organizations are doing now, and what the people in the organization, you know, is expecting from them now. There was some comments in the chat, which is very active, by the way, while you were speaking. People really praising what you were saying and agreeing and saying, I fully agree with this. This is brilliant. And one of the things that we're discussing in the chat is that, you know, sometimes it feels like those senior people still in command somehow don't own some of the skills you described there. And it's not only digital, it's about leadership as well, which is the big thing here, right? How do you see, or what do you think about the role of those senior people? And if that is going to change somehow after COVID-19, how do you see that evolving somehow in the next few months, years?
Well, I must ask you for patience, because we will very likely face, that's why I call them the tipping points, we'll very likely see different developments. The first being the huge economic crisis we're in, okay? We're gonna lose 7, 8, 10% of world GDP over the last months. This will create millions and millions of unemployed people and jobless people. This will be a challenge to psychological and material health of millions of people, okay? So the worst is yet to come. And before it gets better, there's an old saying that it has to get worse before it gets better. While getting worse, you might be discouraged, because you might see this old leadership coming up again. I just spoke today with a friend of mine who is the senior partner of the most important interims management company. And I said, I would like to hear from you, what are the trends? And he said, oh, right now people are asking us for restructuring managers, for tough restructuring managers. So it's male, testosterone loaded, tough restructuring manager, top down, hierarchical. Solve our situation, okay? And if you look at this, you say, oh, I'm discouraged. What is about diversity? What is about, you know, the importance of the soft skills and all the things that we learned over those years? It will be gone. This is a natural development. We have to accept that, will come, but people are, you know, we have bruised skin right now. We're all under psychological strain, the one more, the other less. People will remember the good and the bad in this moment. I've seen people right now who were laid off in one way or in another way. One person told me just today, American company, she's a top manager, and they said, look, we're stock listed. Our criterion to show, you know, to give some boost to our share is to show how many people we sack. So we're collecting corpses. So I'm sorry, we have to sack you, and with you, your whole department, because then we're able to announce that we sacked so many hundreds or thousands of people. But, you know, one day we might come back and we'll be able to do business again. She will never, ever go back to this company or have any kind of relationship with this company ever in her life. And she's telling me, I'm not allowed to, but it's a very well-known company. She's sharing the name of the company with everyone. Another example is another person who was sacked, that was last week, where the situation is clear. It's in the travel business. So they're losing money by the day, okay? So she said, she was told, you know, we have to get rid of people because we don't have work to do. But you are entitled, now we have to reduce dramatically. We have allocated a budget. You are entitled to a severance payment of XYZ. We would like to add to this 5% because we can't do more. So you will get more than you were entitled to. But we will give you, we're setting up a mentoring program between the people who are still in the company and the people who are out of the company, and both can be mentors and mentees to try to stay together. And instead of giving you an outplacement, which you can get if you want, we're giving you the access to systems that are, again, hackathons that they're doing to try to look at new business models, to make you survive during the time that we can't pay for this, and then gain you back. And if you have an idea to create your business that will allow to pay for your own salary and your people's salary, please come back. Both cases are firing people. Who do you think will have a better attitude towards the employer? So people will not forget this. And after the time get worse, we will get better times. And then it will be the time, and that's where the tipping points are, where these energies can be released. And that's where I'm positive. Last week, and I'm speaking about facts, and it's not crystal ball, last week, 87 German companies, plus 5 associations of industries, have addressed the Chancellor Merkel with a letter that was really astonishing. They told her, well, we have to run down economy right now, it's clear, but there's one thing that is clear. This is a level playing field, because Corona knows no borders. So the whole world is in that situation. Now, since everybody has to drive their economy down, let's do something different. When we drive the economy up, let's link the investments, the donations, the support, the loans by the state, and the policy of the state to business models that are more environmental and more societal and more governing relevant. And so invest in renewable energy. You will only get, as a car manufacturing company, you will only get state subsidies if you make it very clear that your next business model is environmentally sound. And thereby we transform the economy, and we use, like judo, we use the power, the bad power of the virus to beat the virus and beyond that. So there are opportunities to do it, and the time will come afterwards. Be patient and be courageous. The good times will come.
Thank you, Emilio. I'm trying to, I mean, there's many questions. I'm trying to group them, you know, and organize them. There's a few around the issue of trust. I know that you feel like trust is crucial, right, for leadership in any moment, right? But particularly in situations like this. We are all feeling, getting comments from here and there in the chat, we're all feeling that somehow, you know, because of how governments are behaving in many countries, saying things that somehow sometimes don't seem like true. You know how media is behaving with this issue as well of true and what is true and what is a lie or what is not exactly the truth. You know, there's kind of, you know, citizens feel like, and employees, you know, feel like even the CEO is not exactly saying what people are expecting from a CEO to say. So this issue of trust, you know, also for us, you know, imagine as managers and managing our small team, depending on what part in the organization we are, how we can deal with trust, and what do you think is so important in a context like this one?
Well, trust is one of the new commodities. Okay, we all know that trust is something that will reduce complexity, especially now. Again, you are just a face on your video. I know you because you're part of my staff, but right now you're remote, you're at home. You know, how can I control you? How can I be sure that you do your homework? Okay, the only thing I can do is based on trust. And if there is trust, I don't need to set up very complicated controls. I don't need to send your policeman at home to check whether you're at home working or what you're doing. It costs me money. So there is an economic value of trust, but the how of trust is not an easy thing. However, at my chair at university, I teach business administration and leadership. 15 years ago, I had an assistant, a very bright young man. He's now not young any longer, but he's still very bright. He wanted to do a PhD on trust. Now, in German academia, I don't know whether any one of you studied in Germany, this is not possible. You do trust, you go to philosophy. If you want to do business administration PhD, you do the KPI. You do the controlling KPIs, jawohl? So this poor guy had to fight to get this. I supported him, and he produced a 350 pages dissertation on trust. And believe me, I have it here in my library. Even if you were speaking perfect German, I would open up any page random and you would not understand one word. And I didn't understand one word, because the deal was write it in such a complicated way that it looks like good science, okay? Because that's German academia, while American or English academia is with clear language. That's why I write my books in English and not in German. So when I told him, look, this is an important stuff you did, please let me understand it. So I said, well, I want to do a presentation from the board of Allianz, and please allow me to translate it. So we did 2-day workshops, and we figured out 10 rules that I'm going to share with you right now. And the strange thing about it is, if you hear them, you will think that your grandmother is speaking, because this is banal, conventional wisdom. And the first time I presented them, I said, my goodness, this is not Harvard, Potter, Peter Drucker. This is my grandmother. You know, they're going to kill me. But who says that our grandmothers are not great teachers of life? So let's look at them. The first is always set an example. The leader who went in front of his people saying, it's time of blood, sweat, and tears. This is a true story. We all have to you know, save money, and we're probably going to get rid of many of you. I'm sorry, after this town hall meeting, I need to go. My daughter has birthday, and I promised her to be with her this weekend. Fine. He leaves. His driver brings him to the general aviation terminal. He boards the corporate jet. In the corporate jet, his 16-year-old daughter is there. The pilot very sweetly says, I know that your daughter has birthday. So he brings a nice cup of caviar and a beautiful bottle of champagne, Menil de Blanc, 1987 millésime. Okay? What does this young girl do while they're flying to Nizza and going to Saint-Tropez? She takes a picture, a selfie of herself and the dad in front of the caviar and champagne, and writes it on the Instagram account. Hey, Saint-Tropez, we're coming. Party for my birthday. How long do you think the CEO was in his job? Monday, he was sacked, because everybody read it. The same guy who said blood, sweat, and tears now is flying with a corporate jet to Saint-Tropez with his daughter eating caviar and champagne. Is it fair to this girl? No, it's unfair to this girl. But you always have to set an example. And the higher you climb on the corporate ladder, the more you are observed. Everybody will know exactly what you do. Don't think you can do something else. The second rule, I told you already, this I'm not going to delve into much. Trust is based on this triangle made of competence, integrity, and motivation. The third one is EMMA. EMMA is an acronym that one of my big mentors told me once. I go from the back. A is always analyze your stakeholders. Analysis. The first M is motivation. What is driving you? What is driving Antonio, Luisa, Natalia, Gregorio here? Is it learning? Is it because their company paid for the Westfield course? It's because Natalia is in love of Gregorio. She wants to be on the same call with him. Look at the motivation of the people. The second M is mentality. I come from a town in southern Italy. I'm talking to an international audience of much younger people, men and women. If I tell you a joke from my hometown, half of you will not laugh and the other half will sue me, okay? So I have to respect your mentality, which is different. And the most important is the E, empathy. Be empathetic with the others. The fourth rule is walk the talk. Make your own position clear. Never lie. If you promise something, keep this promise. Nobody forces you to promise something. Do not promise. But if you do, keep the promise. Fifth is trust is not given because you demand it. Trust is based on long-term relationships. In tribal societies like southern Italy, like mine, trust is based on blood. Okay? In civilized societies, trust is based on 12 kept promises. You know why the Germans are punctual? Because the Germans are not a tribal society. And a punctuality is a very easy to check kept promise. 12 of them and you start to trust people. 6, accept and admit mistakes. You can be a genius, but if you think you can never have a mistake, you're not going to be a good leader. So if you do a mistake, admit it. 7, have consideration and respect for stakeholders, for partners, for competitors. Even if they're competitors, never badmouth anyone. Because if you badmouth one person, that one person that heard you badmouthing will think you will badmouthing that other person as well. Just don't do it. Rule number 8, Do you like investigators? Do you like investigative journalists? Do you like the audit department? Do you like compliance? No, of course you don't like them, but we need them because we screwed up as big business. We screwed up with Enron. We screwed up in the last 20 years. So we need feedback and control mechanisms to underline the trust. 9 is say what you think and do what you say. And last but not least is treat others as you'd like to be treated. A very short story. The way we selected our top management at Allianz in previous years, it was the best kept secret, and now I can reveal it because they changed the system afterwards. You would be, I don't know, Luisa is 28 years old. She's running her first team. She did her MBA at Westfield. She has a great education. She speaks 7 languages. She is a star. She gets a phone call from the personal assistant of the CEO saying, Luisa Fernandez, you're invited with your partner to 3 days in our farm in Upper Bavaria. So Luisa would say, oh, why? Well, no explanation. She would go to her colleagues in her department and say, oh, I was invited for 3 days at the CEO villa in Upper Bavaria. What is this about? Nobody would know. I haven't been invited. One day, the gray-haired gorilla at the coffee machine would tell her, ah, Luisa, you are invited to the fork test. To the what? To the fork test. They're going to have you at a dinner and see whether you eat well with fork and knife, and if you have a partner who is a civilized person, and if you are so, you got to be poised for big jobs in the company. So Luisa reads up the etiquette books. She looks at the nicest Chanel suit she can have. She tells her partner, dress well, no brown shoes in the evening, whatever she thinks. 3 days there, then the dinner. I was at those dinners maybe 30 times, okay? Because 5 top managers like us had the young talents at our dinner table. So they came and it was terrible. They tried to schmooze me. Oh, you're Italian, we love Italy. I know spaghetti bolognese, and I tell them, spaghetti bolognese is not an Italian recipe. So it was terrible. So they tried to make their best impression. Now comes the best kept secret. We then sent them to bed, and we discussed every single candidate between the top managers. Do you know what the secret was? At this discussion, we had the cleaning lady, the valet, the gardener, the plumber, everybody working in the staff. And everybody had the same vote. And if you had treated the cleaning lady bad, you had no opportunity to be promoted at Allianz. So if you abide by those 10 rules, you can establish and reestablish trust. Sorry, Mario Monti will wait for me. We can take another couple of questions.
Wonderful. I think we want to be very mindful with your time and the time of the people here, Emilio. I think we can get the last question. I'm going to try to compile the question, for the many comments I'm getting here. Well, you said at the beginning, Emilio, that you and we are brothers in life. I love to say that we are twin souls, and we have here very smart people in this audience. Actually, and we have as well German speakers, because when you play this German accent, I got here comments like richtig or gerne. So, well, you are in Germany now in Munich, so we have people here as well that sympathize with that moment for you now in Munich. The question is, and this is the last question, is about what leaders is the biggest. It's not a hierarchical role. It's not CEOs or managers, it's what leaders can do in this situation when it comes to the moment when we need to plan for the future, but as well we need to see how we survive the crisis that is coming, right? So, and over here, there's many comments around what is the important thing right now. It's cash flow, so it's keeping the engine working, so that maybe we have to fire many people in order for this to continue working, or this is about taking care of the people who, ultimately will be those people, the one who really will make a difference in this company moving forward, right? Once we survive these first stages. So there's many questions around this. Is this kind of crossroads for a leader, which is like, what should I do now, right? It's like keeping as many people as I can on board, or try to save the P&L, the profits of the company for now, and then I think afterwards.
Well, it's a little bit of both, because of course If the body doesn't breathe, you know, you can put up the makeup and the lipstick and the nicest shoes and the best suit. It will be a corpse with a nice suit. So it has to breathe. So the company has to live somehow, and that is one part. However, the energy and the reserves that the stakeholders have, and that's why purpose is so important. If there is a good purpose, if what you're doing is helping something, and I will give you an example in a minute, then you will be able to rally resources around this company. I was once sent to Wharton to substitute my CEO at a job fair at the best business school of the old world, which was Wharton School. And before me spoke John Corzine, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, and Gupta, the CEO of McKinsey. And I was lost. I was just Emilio Galli from Allianz. So I was neither a CEO nor from a very important company. I asked the people, you know, I can't tell you a big job speech to hire you. I know you're the brightest brains here. I can do what I can do as a communicator. I can ask you a question. And the question is, who of you has a personal story to tell which has a societal relevance? And the first started, it was a young lady. She said, I was grown up in the Midwest by my grandparents because my parents died when I was 4 years old. I owe them so much. I will get a job either on the East Coast or on the West Coast, definitely not in Iowa. So my personal issue is who's going to care for my grandparents? The general societal issue is old age caring. The second came and said, I'm from Florida. We had Hurricane Andrew here, which destroyed the house of my parents, and they're rebuilding the house. I'm here in Pennsylvania. I would love to be with my parents. So the personal issue is we lost our house. The general issue is natural catastrophes. And I said, stop here. It was too good, these examples. I can tell you one thing. If you want to make money, go to Goldman Sachs. If you want to go do the strategies for the companies, go to McKinsey. If you want to do something about old age care and about natural catastrophes, come to work for Allianz, because that's our business. So if you are able to look at the purpose of your own company and your own team, you will then be able to tap the financial and physical resources of the stakeholders to save you. If your business, if your services make a sense, you will find a way through it. And people will tighten their belt, will live through the different time, they will go through the desert, but they have an officer in front of them, like Rafa, who was an officer, who gave me one of the most wonderful gifts. He gave me when I got a heart attack, I got a heart stroke in November. And Rafa was one of the 2 people visiting me. And he came and he gave me a tarjeta from his Spanish Legion. And it says, we never leave anyone behind. This is big leadership. Make sure that you don't leave anyone behind, and you will make some way through this thing, and we're done.
Thank you, Emilio.
It's not me. I don't know who's calling.
That's not me either, Emilio. Exactly. I don't know, but it's like, I don't know what it's, okay, we got rid of it. Thank you, Emilio. It's been very, very inspiring. As I would say, as always, but because I have the pleasure to share to be with you, very often. But I believe for the comments that people really enjoyed this time with you. Thank you very much for your time, your inspiration, and all your knowledge about all these topics. And for the rest of the people, chicos, muchas gracias. De verdad que hemos disfrutado mucho la sesión con todos vosotros y bueno, seguimos en marcha con el curso y con todo lo que tenemos delante. Espero que esto os haya gustado y ha sido un placer.
Thank you very much.
Gracias,
Bye-bye.
bendiciones.
Muchas gracias.
Súper, muchas
Gracias.
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 Mil gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.